You can't think your way out of trauma. I know. Everyone online, your therapist, your favorite mental health guru has been telling you that understanding your patterns is how you'll heal. That insight equals transformation. I get it, because after decades of therapy, I understood everything. My fearful avoidant attachment style, my mood disorder, my ADHD, my childhood wounds, and why I kept sabotaging every good relationship and good opportunity that came into my life. And yet becoming an expert on my own patterns didn't stop me from holding my breath and tensing up my body. If you've been doing all the healing work and your body still feels like it's stuck in survival mode, then what I discovered that worked for me could change everything for you. Because the problem isn't that you don't understand your trauma or your wounds well enough. The problem is that you're trying to think your way out of something that's living in your body and that can only be released through feeling. Hi, I'm Leslie, and in this video, I'm going to break down why you might be stuck despite doing all the work, and a completely different approach that might finally break you free to change. So let me ask you, if you understand your attachment style, you know your triggers, you understand why you keep repeating the same cycles, you've read the books, you've watched the videos, you've done the journaling, even maybe talk therapy. So why are you still anxious, still sabotaging relationships and opportunities, still abandoning yourself, despite feeling like you should know better by now? Most of us believe that if we just understand why we are the way that we are, then that's how we'll heal. That's what it feels like everyone is saying, right? That's how we get there. It's like trying to understand your way out of quicksand. The more you're analyzing, the more you're in your own head, the deeper you're going to sink. The only way out is through shifting your body, through moving forward and doing something different. The truth is that understanding is maybe 10% of healing. And the other 90%, that's all the feeling and processing that we've been avoiding, all the stuff we've been burying deep inside us since our childhood. Here's the part that nobody tells us. You can't think your way to healing. After a lifetime of being disconnected, we don't even know what regulated feels like, what feeling safe and secure in our own bodies means. Understanding what it means conceptually is important, but the missing piece, the part that moves us forward, is you can't think your way to a feeling. I'm telling you this from experience. I was in therapy since I was 15 years old. I got stable on medication for my bipolar 2 and ADHD. I thought I understood everything about my CPTSD and my triggers. But I was still stuck, still people-pleasing, abandoning myself, and to be honest, still dissociating much of the time. And if that's where you are, then I want you to know that you're not alone. For me, it took doing a yoga class for everything to start to shift, and maybe not for the reason you think. Basically, it wasn't because I understood more that I was able to move past this. It's really because I finally started feeling in my body what I'd been trying to think my way towards for years. I was finally moving stuff through and releasing. There was one specific moment that changed everything for me, but first, I want to talk about where your emotions are actually going. The most important takeaway from this video, if you take away anything at all, is that emotions start in our body and then we formulate thoughts. It's not the other way around. Think about when you're anxious, right? First, you start feeling it in your body. Maybe your breathing starts getting heavier. You're clenching your fists. Your heart is racing. You feel butterflies in your stomach. And then you start having the thoughts. The physical sensation comes first, always. This is why you can spend years in talk therapy working through your anxiety, understanding why you're anxious, the root cause, but still feel anxious. Growing up in chaos, I became completely cut off from my feelings. My body became like a storage unit. Every emotion I couldn't express got boxed up and put away deep into storage. And it was like I shut and locked the door and lost the key. I was so clumsy. I was constantly walking into things, bruising myself, tripping all the time. It was pretty comical to other people, this little quirk about me, but it was actually much more concerning, the reason why I was doing this. I was even numb to the physical pain. I had zero awareness of my body in space. Maybe you can relate to that, to being numb and dissociating, or just feeling like you're floating through life, not really present. And there was nothing I could do, really, because I was so disconnected. I didn't even realize that I was disconnected. I didn't realize there was another way to be. I didn't realize that I was doing certain things because of trying to protect myself. I just thought, damn, I'm so freaking clumsy. Like, why is no one else doing this? Why do people have such good coordination playing sports? Because that's another thing. I had terrible hand-eye coordination, and I thought it was just me. In talk therapy, I could explain everything intellectually. I really became an expert at understanding and rewriting my own story, but I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel generally, not just pain, but numbing yourself and not being able to feel also prevents you from feeling positive emotions like joy, contentment. I couldn't really feel anything because my body had learned that feeling wasn't safe from my earliest years. That just became my normal. What makes this complicated is that your body's not just storing these emotions. It's actually protecting you from feeling them. I'm going to show you how this all finally clicked for me, and maybe it'll make more sense. So I'd been doing yoga classes for a few months, but I was definitely not doing great at it. I was still dissociating, still struggling to understand the instructor's instructions about feeling into different parts of your body, rooting yourself in the floor, feeling like that you're extending out from your toes, all this stuff. I just couldn't feel it. One day the instructor taught us shoulder stand. And that's an inversion where you go upside down, your legs up in the air. And I got into the pose, and suddenly it was like someone flipped a switch I didn't even know was on. Everything went still. All the tension in my muscles was released. Like, this is after maybe about 2 minutes into the pose. I just felt this wave of like what I guess was like serenity, internal peace. It was so crazy to me. And I actually was like, is everything okay? Like, am I high? Because this is definitely not my normal state, but it didn't feel like I was intoxicated in the ways I knew from weed, alcohol, anxiety meds. But it felt so good. It felt even better than any other synthetic high that I'd ever chased. Honestly, what I noticed most was the absence of what was there before. Like, all my life, there had just been this tension, this clenching everywhere in my body, and holding my breath, constant noise in my head. And suddenly everything stopped and I really felt still. It was amazing to me. And I thought, like, wow, is this why everyone's doing yoga? It was just science. My nervous system shifted out of fight or flight into parasympathetic nervous system mode. Maybe you've heard of it, the rest and digest mode, where you're calm and regulated. It's a calm, safe state. For the first time in my life, I was in that state and truly felt safe in my own body. It was honestly life-changing. I didn't even know this was possible. And this moment in this class, that first time, changed my life. I thought the constant clenching and the activation, that was just how life was supposed to feel. Not just like for me personally, but I didn't know like this is how other people feel. This is what people who grew up in safe homes learn to feel. This is what I've been missing. That inversion helped to shift me into this feeling of safety that I'd never been able to achieve with just talk therapy alone. Because I'm going to give talk therapy a lot of credit and all the skills and stuff I learned over the years. They were helpful, but they weren't enough. They weren't enough for me to fully step into the next phase. Therapy helps us understand why we don't feel safe, but it couldn't give me the felt experience of being safe in my body. Now, I didn't just stay a regulated person after that. It's still a daily battle for me because honestly, it makes sense. If I spent the majority of my life feeling unsafe in fight or flight and freeze mode, then that's my baseline. That's what's comfortable and normal for me, even if it's not what's best for me. That's what I know, and that's what my body reverted to shortly after that class. What changed was that now I knew that there was something else. There was another state of being that I wanted to get back to. That storage unit I mentioned, being in shoulder stand was like the first time that I felt safe and that it was possible to even start unpacking the stuff inside there. Now you might be wondering, if experiencing it in our bodies is what's the answer, then why do so many of us feel stuck doing the work, overthinking and analyzing in our heads? For me, I was using talk therapy to a certain extent to avoid feeling. By intellectualizing and going over everything, it felt like I'm going over it, I'm doing all the work, I'm addressing it. Now I can move on to something else. But I was avoiding feeling, and I had no idea consciously. I was not aware. So it was really hard and impossible, really, to be able to know that I need to do something different. My constant analyzing was protecting me from feeling. Overthinking for me, and maybe for you too, became like a defense mechanism against feeling. Because it feels so much safer to think about the trauma from a safe distance than to actually face it and feel. Because those feelings that we buried deep inside were really unpleasant, really painful. It makes sense why we were not able to feel them when we were young and defenseless, and we lacked the tools and the skills to do it. I was like a detective at a crime scene, analyzing the same evidence over and over, just coming up with more narratives, looking at this angle, looking at that angle, but never actually coming to a resolution, just going in loops and never getting to the suspects, never doing any interviews, just stuck in my head in the same loop. I wasn't interacting with the feelings that I needed to. I've spent hours talking about it in therapy and with close friends about my dysfunctional patterns, my dysfunctional childhood, cringeworthy moments of me sabotaging relationships or awkward moments projecting. Maybe you've done this too, over and over. People pleasing, abandoning ourselves, dissociating, still doing these things despite feeling like we should know better by now. Because if we understand it, then wouldn't it make sense that you just don't repeat the same things over and over again? And that's the trap we get stuck in, because feeling is the only way to get unstuck. Imagine your body is a house, and in the basement, there's years of flooded water. In that water, there's grief, rage, pain, terror, sadness. I was upstairs with the blueprints analyzing why it flooded, but I was too afraid to go down into that basement, too afraid to drain the water and get wet. So I stayed upstairs analyzing from a distance, but the water was still there and it was still eating away at my foundation. I could never really feel grounded. I could never really feel secure while all that stuff was just laying there unprocessed. I would start numbing, whether it was with weed, alcohol, scrolling, binge eating. I would do anything just to avoid feeling. And for the most part, like, this stuff would happen without me realizing. Just regular stress in my life would add on to the stress that was buried inside. So the response that I would have would be greater than just this small event, like having uncertainty about when someone is going to call me back. There was all this underlying stress already that this was just the cherry on top. Maybe you've done things like this to numb too. And it makes sense, because when we feel like we don't have any other way to handle something, we have to do what we can to survive that moment, even if we feel like it shouldn't be that big of a deal. These are our survival tools. It's kind of like sandbagging the door after the flood. We're temporarily trying to hold back the water, but eventually the water is going to start to leak through. And so we have a choice. And usually we just keep putting more and more sandbags, trying to block off the water, never thinking about, maybe this time I'll actually get what I need to drain it. There's so much unprocessed grief that we have to go through, we have to eventually deal with, because it doesn't go away when we stuff it inside. With all the intellectual understanding, like the grief for the stability and security I never had as a kid, I knew intellectually that I was worthy and enough, that I deserved more. But I just couldn't feel it. Feeling that grief was too dangerous. What are you protecting yourself from feeling when you're numbing out? Do you ever think about it? Could you find some kind of connection, seeing something that feels right for you? Group therapy started to crack this open for me. It kind of forced me to feel. At first, I didn't ever share anything, but hearing someone's story that I could see myself in, even though I wasn't personally being vulnerable, just being close to that, I would feel the buried grief, the pain. I would feel the tears coming up. It was so intense and just coming up through me, and I couldn't think myself away from them. They just had to come out. Have you ever had that happen to you? Where someone's story hits you in your body before your brain can even process it? And for me, doing yoga started to force me out of my own head, kind of taught me how to be in my own body. Like when the teacher would say, like, feel your feet grounded in the floor, the separation between your toes. I just couldn't. And I was constantly looking around in the class to see, like, is anyone else struggling? And just like most of my life, I felt like it was just me, that I was just some weird alien who couldn't do like a basic thing, who couldn't follow a basic instruction. If you've tried doing body practices like that and you felt like you were doing something wrong because you couldn't feel anything, I want you to know there's nothing wrong with you. And that's likely just dissociation, just trying to keep yourself safe. That's what disconnection does to us. But the important thing is to keep showing up and being persistent, because that's what I did. It took me literally months for me to start to feel what the instructors were telling me to do, to kind of feel in my own body. Sometimes I'd be doing a hip opening pose and I would just feel so much rage and anger and frustration that I couldn't shake for the rest of the class. And I would have no idea, like, where the hell is this coming from? And other times I would feel like a wave of grief and uncontrollable sadness and start crying doing corpse pose at the end of the class. Like I would just be resting after doing all the hard work of the class, moving around in my body. And it was like I unlodged all these feelings and I didn't even know why I was crying. It was kind of scary because I had nobody to tell me that this was normal. And I felt too embarrassed to ask the instructor. Maybe this has happened for you too. And I just want you to know that you're not crazy and there's nothing wrong with you, because it's normal for things like this to happen to people like us who spent a lifetime disconnected and are starting to slowly learn how to feel. If this happens to you, I want you to know that it's not weakness. It's your body finally feeling safe to release what it's been too afraid to let go of. Yoga wasn't causing these emotions. Yoga was just a vehicle that allowed my body to feel and let go. So that's what broke me through being stuck in talk therapy. Supplementing all the analyzing with actually feeling through and releasing what I'd been holding on to. Actually feeling what I'd been protecting myself from experiencing. So if thinking won't heal us, then how do we do this safely? Especially when everything inside your body is telling you not to go there, is resisting at all costs. Whether you procrastinate or you say like, I can't like sit through doing breath work or anything like that. I don't have the patience. I don't have the flexibility to do yoga. We're able to find excuses for why we're not going to do it. We're pretty expert at that because we're trying to protect ourselves. Like I said, the overthinking is a defense mechanism. Here's what changed my life, the game changer. In order to calm the mind, you have to calm the body first. And there's a few ways you can do this. We've been taught top down that you think positive things and then you'll feel better. But trauma healing is truly bottom up. Here's how this works for me. I start every single day with breathwork. It's non-negotiable. And this practice has actually saved my life. I'm not being hyperbolic. Reality of it, the cold, hard truth is that my baseline is to be dysregulated. Maybe yours is the same, that anxiety, hypervigilance, the constant activation, the tendency to spiral and project and take things personally. Breathwork is like how I manually reset every single morning and I set myself up to have a good day. It feels like putting on armor because you can use breathwork and meditation in a moment when you feel stressed. But I find that it's been the most helpful in my life by doing it before I get triggered, before I get activated, starting my day with my set point regulated so that I'm better able to handle and manage all the stressors of daily life. Like in that shoulder stand moment, that switch flipping that I felt, this profound change. That was my vagus nerve being activated. That's what shifted my nervous system. Breathwork does the same thing without needing to have the flexibility, the time, the setup to do an elaborate yoga pose. I can do it every single day, first thing, without any effort in my bed, before I even get up to start my day. There are different types of breathwork you can do. There's stuff that's activating, like Wim Hof breathwork. There's more calming stuff, like box breathing, doing extended exhales. You have to figure out what your nervous system needs. And what has worked for me, and what I think is best for everyone, is to do trial and error. I honestly look around on YouTube for videos of certain durations, like 5-minute, 10-minute breath work, and I find what works for me. And usually I'll be able to stick with one type that feels really good for me for a few days, few weeks, few months. And sometimes I need to change it up. So I feel like there's always a kind of breath work that you need and can respond to. Before, my gauge for how I was doing was why was I triggered by that? Trying to analyze. And now my gauge for how I am is, how do I feel in my body? Maybe for you, it's clenching your fists, tight jaw, tight traps, holding your breath. Honestly, sometimes even just a quick sigh. I was just talking with my best friend about this, that it feels so good to just sigh. Try it. I saw in a Huberman episode him saying that doing physiological sighs like this, a few cycles of them, actually calms your body down faster than other types of breath work. So that's something that you have in your tool belt that you can do anywhere. This is all based on solid neuroscience. It's not just stuff that I'm saying that only works for me or a few people. Your vagus nerve can literally override your thinking brain. Bottom-up processing like breath work is when your body sends safety signals to your brain, not the other way around. Before I started all of this, I didn't even know what regulated felt like. The shoulder stand gave me a first taste, but doing breath work has been what's made it sustainable because I'm empowered to be able to take control of this anywhere, anytime. I don't need any special tools. I don't even necessarily need a guided audio track. It's not about never getting dysregulated, because I definitely still do, even with putting on my armor breathwork every morning. It's inevitable for me that sometimes life happens and it can be really overwhelming. But now I have tools to shift every day, and it takes me more to get triggered, to start spiraling. All these tools are available for you too. You can regulate your nervous system. Breathwork, meditation, those are really helpful tools. But there's another one that's not talked about as much that is really important, especially when we are really struggling to regulate on our own. And that's co-regulation, which is borrowing somebody else's regulated nervous system in order to help regulate your own. Because being around safe, calm people affects us in a positive way. Just like being around people who are on edge and hypervigilant, it makes us anxious too. So it's important, especially if we're struggling to regulate, to be around safe people. Think about that in your life. Have you ever had a hug where you just felt everything start to melt away? I have had that in my life in a few really critical periods of time where I was really struggling, where I got a hug from somebody who was a really safe person in my life, where I literally felt everything start melting. And your nervous system start to sync up. That even happens with my cat, Sometimes he's next to me and he's purring, and I feel his calmness start to rub off on me. As much as the healing work is about us working through our own stuff, an important part of healing is to heal alongside and with other people. That's why it's important when you're in therapy to find a therapist that makes you feel safe. That's an important part of the process. And for me, what enhanced everything was having a group of safe, supportive people that could understand childhood trauma in my group therapy, as well as the really calm and chill, safe yoga instructor and the other people in the class who weren't activated and anxious like I felt on a regular basis. They kind of modeled for me and also rubbed off on me in that way. It's like your dysregulated nervous system is a battery at 5%, and someone else's regulated nervous system is a wireless charger. Who in your life helps you feel calmer just by being near them, or even just by picking up the phone and calling them? Those are your co-regulation sources. If you can, try to spend more time around those people and pets. So along with co-regulation, a bunch of other tools at your disposal are breathwork. And I recommend starting out with even 5 deep breaths and exploring on YouTube guided stuff to help you. Then there's movement. Yoga worked earlier for me, but I don't even do that much yoga every day now, and I'm still able to regulate through other things like walking, running, dancing. A lot of people also find shaking to help. Anything that gets you into a physical sensation that works up your body and is able to dislodge things. If you feel awkward doing this stuff, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a sign that you need it more in your life. Body scanning, I think, is really helpful. There are some days where it's harder to be able to feel into my body. So I actually like to think of stuff like body scanning as useful tools to gauge, like, how am I doing today? Today, am I able to feel into my body, or do I feel like it's a little bit harder? Because I find that sometimes I still don't always know how I'm feeling, especially if I'm already kind of stressed, that I'm starting to feel a little bit cut off from my body. And then I kind of know what to do. Maybe I need to step away from what I'm doing, step away from certain people and certain tasks, and take a few deep breaths or a walk. When I first started doing body scanning, I didn't feel anything below my neck. So if that's where you are, that's normal. You're not broken. But doing it over time, you do start to feel more. It does take effort. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Where I am today, like, it's still, every day is effortful. But putting in a little bit most days over time has led to real change. And I honestly believe that you can do that too. Especially if you have complex trauma, I really recommend, if you have access to it, looking into a somatic therapist. I haven't had any personal experience, but I've heard from other people how effective it has been for them. A trauma-informed somatic therapist helps you track sensations and release trauma stored in the body safely. There are also other things like EFT tapping, which personally I've never been able to really get to work for me, but that just could be a personal thing to me. But I do want to recommend it because I know that it works for so many people. Remember the flooded basement I talked about? These practices, doing them regularly enough, are how you start to finally drain the water. Slowly, safely, one bucket at a time, and being able to stick with it. Because once you start doing this stuff, you're not analyzing from upstairs anymore. You're finally doing the work and being able to rebuild a solid foundation for yourself. You deserve that. You deserve a secure and stable base. Now, the emotions that come up, whether it's grief, rage, pain, even terror, sadness, none of that is new. That stuff is deep, old, and it's really intense when it starts coming up. And it can be scary, but I believe for all of us, it's necessary for this stuff to come up and come out through us. It takes a lot of courage to be able to face yourself and do the work. So if anything in this video is resonating with you, I see you and I commend you, because it's really not easy. The easy thing is to just go through life like other people we know who don't do the work, who are stuck in their patterns and don't really want to change. I see you and I'm proud of you, because I know it took a lot to even get to where you are now. All the old pain buried inside us really needs to find a way out in order for us to really move forward, or else we just stay stuck. The grief that I felt in yoga class, that was grief for the stability, the safety that I never got growing up, finally being processed. So what are you holding on to? What do you feel like is ready to be released? Because that's what it takes. It takes being ready. And that's the real reason why you haven't done this yet, is just because on your journey, you haven't reached the point where you're ready, where you don't need to hold on to the overthinking defense mechanism to protect yourself, where you build up enough of the tools, the skills to be able to handle feeling all the old feelings. On the other side of releasing all this old stuff is lightness, space, freedom, safety, and truly able to experience joy and all of the positive emotions that we cut ourselves off of when we're numb and disconnected. Since I've been doing this stuff, I don't need to numb anymore. Nowhere near like I used to. It's pretty rare now. I have no desire at all to drink or reach for any substance. I like the feeling of being regulated so much more than any other altered state of consciousness. It feels so good to feel safe for the first time in my life. And I think all of us deserve that. We all deserve to learn safety after not knowing it for so long. And I'm so grateful that it's even possible to be able to get a chance, despite how your life might have started, despite how stuck you might have been, that there's hope, that we can still know safety. I don't dissociate constantly. I can feel more in my body than I ever have before. And I've been able to start setting boundaries without abandoning myself. And it's not because I understand better, because my understanding was pretty solid for a pretty long time. It's because I finally felt and processed what kept me stuck. And I know for a fact that if you do the same, it will lead you to that freedom, to that safety. Please be gentle with yourself. You learned to disconnect for a reason. It was useful for you in your past. And it's hard to let go of something that was so essential for your survival. So it's important to be compassionate and gentle with yourself when trying to resist what became our default state. You're safe now, and your body just needs to learn that. You just need to show yourself that there is a way for you to feel safe. Okay, let's wrap this up. So your trauma lives in your body. It's not just the stories in your mind. Emotions begin first as physical sensations, and your body's been holding on to a lifetime's worth of unprocessed feelings. Overthinking is a way for your brain to protect itself from feeling. And you cannot think your way to feeling safe. You have to experience it to let go. For me, that meant feeling my nervous system shift for the first time in shoulder stand. It meant daily breathwork to put on fresh armor every day. It means reconnecting to bodies that we've been disconnected from. The storage unit we walk past without ever looking at what's inside. It means finally going down into that flooded basement and not just analyzing safely from upstairs, coming up with excuses for why it's not a good time to go down there and deal with it. It means finding safe people who can help regulate our nervous systems. And it means finally processing all the grief, the rage, the shame, the unpleasant emotions that we've been holding on to for our lives. All the stuff we've been protecting ourselves from feeling. For you, it might look different, but the principle is still the same. We have to feel it to heal it. We can't think our way there. We have to feel our way through. If you've been stuck despite doing the work, doing everything they've told you, you're not weak, you didn't fail, you're definitely not doing it wrong. You're doing everything right. And this is a normal part of the process. Change is hard. It's hard to go against what's your normal, what's kept you safe. It's the most logical and natural response to not want to do something that you don't know. You might just be trying to think your way to a feeling that can only be experienced. And the practices I shared, they're the pathways to actually feeling what regulation, what safety, what security feels like. Even if you've never felt it, even if you've spent your whole life in fight, flight, or freeze, even if you don't think it's possible for you, it is possible. I promise you that. I didn't get here and make progress in my life, start doing the things that I always dreamed of doing because I understood well enough. It was because I finally felt all the stuff related to my trauma that I buried deep inside. It allowed me to grieve what I'd never have, what I missed out on. It allowed me to truly have compassion for myself, to learn to accept and love myself. I finally felt it, I processed it, and finally I released it. And if I can do this too, after 30 years old, after a lifetime of being stuck, of dissociation, I guarantee that you can too. There is so much hope, so much more to your life that you can have. And I'm living proof of that. And I'm telling you, I was a completely different person before I started feeling. I was so limited in what I thought I could have and who I was and what I could feel. Do you relate to being stuck in this overthinking? Have you noticed yourself disconnected from your body? Have emotions ever surprised you coming out through breathwork or movement? Or maybe you've just realized that you don't think you've ever felt safe in your own body before. I shared my story. I was pretty vulnerable today, and I want to hear yours too. You're not alone. We're all in this together. We're all survivors. And I think it's really important that we all connect to each other and find spaces where we can feel safe to be ourselves and can learn from each other. Because I'm not going to lie, my life isn't perfect. Regulating myself isn't a perfect experience. But I got here based on the support and wisdom of other people who encouraged me to feel. If you're new here, welcome. This is a safe space for deep thinkers who spent their whole life trying to think their way into healing and are finally learning that the path to salvation is through feeling in our bodies. This is for all my fellow aliens out there who feel like they've struggled to belong their whole entire life. You belong here, and I'll see you in the next one.